somebody's going to come in at 12:30. They've cancelled and then they've rescheduled and cancelled, so I just don't know.
I guess that because the group is smaller, there are less questions and we can go through. I'm always here, guys. You know that we are always here to answer your question if you have something afterwards. So let us, I can share the presentation and let me explain what this presentation is about as well. Okay. So this is part of a cooperative skills series. It's a series that the Belfast City Council and Co-operative Alternative have supported for the past, I would say, 4 years. We have been doing skill series for people aspiring to set up a cooperative, having a cooperative already set up. So we are trying to keep talking about cooperatives. And today it's very much about really give the business advisor a bit more ground or knowledge about cooperative if they don't have, or the opportunity to ask questions about cooperative. Just to, because the Belfast City Council is our sponsor, just to tell you that here in Belfast, if you are in Belfast, the Belfast City Council has a support program for social enterprises and cooperatives. So there is something for cooperatives. And that support really is about mentoring and coaching groups that they wanted to explore the cooperative solution. And also some seed funding for the cooperative registration. And now that's very much a cooperative alternatives support. If you are interested, well, in your case, you're not in Belfast, but there is a business registration. There are also other programs across the different area of Northern Ireland. So do keep an eye because there is help available. There are also cooperative resources on our website. There are resources on co-ops that where we can where we created resources answering the most frequently asked questions. We have recorded webinars on the website and also local case study. There are also national UK-based support programs that we can offer in collaboration with the Co-ops UK. So these are some of the events and the webinar that we have done and started from last quarter. We have done a young cooperator conference, tried to enthuse and energize, young people to really explore the cooperative solution. We done introduction to cooperative for anybody that was not very technical. This one will be a bit more technical. I hope that you don't mind that. We talked about creative cooperative sociocracy, that is a governance way to deal with the decision making in your cooperative. We talked about urban farmers. And here for this year, today, we are going to specialize very much about what the business advisor wants to know about cooperatives. And also we wanted to explore in February business planning for the cooperatives, why the business planning is slightly different. And we will do also an event, hopefully with a Carrick greengrocer, just to introduce that as a case study to all of you. But today I wanted to start with what is a cooperative, really? What is this famous cooperative identity? How do we define a cooperative? And what are the elements of that definition? We want also to talk about cooperative advantage. We wanted to define who are the members, the types of cooperatives, because the types are based on the members. We wanted to talk about the legislation and the cooperative legal structure, the most common, the model rules and the registration process. And finally, I wanted to talk about one financial advantage, the share offer, the raising of capital in a cooperative. Are we all okay with that? So would you like to just briefly say who you are, your organization, if any, and what would you like to get out of today? And if that initial agenda answer your questions.
Jennifer, do you want to go first?
We can't hear you, Jennifer. You want to go first, Matt?
Yeah, okay. You've lost your sound. Right. I'll start then. I'm Matthew Allen. I retired as I was a mechanical engineer for a forklift company, Heister, down in the County Armagh, just off the M12. When I had the opportunity to retire relatively early, I wanted to put my free time into climate change stuff, doing what I can to reduce climate impacts. As I've looked at that, it strikes me that community energy offers perhaps a good way of me spending my time in a way that can save carbon, where I can use some of the skills that I built over my career usefully. So I'm not really an organization, although I have been doing a little bit of consulting work. But I wouldn't really say I have an organization. What I'd like to get out of today is to really understand whether community energy is the best way for me to put my energies and some of my money perhaps into community schemes that benefit the community and help reduce climate change, because Northern Ireland is badly in need of people doing stuff, and that's what I'd like to do. So that's really what I'd like to get out of it, and made good contact so far. Good to meet both of you, and I'll hand over to you, Jennifer.
Thanks. I'm Jennifer from Anthem Enterprise. We've been in business for the last over 30 years. We are a social enterprise and a charity, and we support and help individuals into self-employment and along their entrepreneurial journey. So among those people that come through our doors are individuals looking at different forms of what I would call social enterprise models. So I always like to do a little bit of upskilling, see what I'm missing out in the last 27 years. Is there anything changed there? So I'm really here today just to pick up anything that I have forgotten, don't recall, or has maybe changed in advising clients.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. And thank you, Matt, both for joining today. So let us start. How do we define a cooperative? Okay, here is one of the truths about cooperatives. We don't define them through a legal structure. We recommend you to use a particular legal structure, but the identity of a cooperative is actually a definition that has been preserved and looked after, safeguarded by the International Cooperative Alliance. So this definition is the definition that has been used by all cooperatives around the world since 1995. What you read on your screen is actually the most updated definition. So that's only one of the three elements to define the cooperative identity. So let us read it together, if you don't mind, because there are some important words there that needs to be really analyzed a bit. This definition says to us that a cooperative is an autonomous association of persons, united voluntarily to meet their common economic, social, and cultural needs and aspirations. Through what? Through a jointly owned, a democratically controlled enterprise. So this group of people decide to do something to answer a need through an enterprise. They do it by putting together their resources, their skills, their knowledge, and they are trying to build an enterprise that really solve an issue or meet a needs in their own community. So a cooperative is defined as a group of people, first of all, and a jointly owned, democratically controlled enterprise. Jointly owned means that all members are equal in owning the enterprise. So this is why it's different from a company. First of all,
Yes. Mhm.
And secondly, is democratically controlled. All members participate in the decision making. Not because they own more than others, but because they are just member, one vote.
Yeah.
So the definition really already gives you the mechanism of what a cooperative is. But they are not, this definition is not enough to create the identity of a cooperative. We have something else that we call the 7 principles of cooperation. And those 7 principles are also part of your constitution, legal constitution. So the identity, the 7 principles, and your values are all 3 components of your identity that is embedded in your constitution. So this is why it's important for us to start from here, not from the constitution, because the constitution can actually be modified in order to set and include these principles. And here are the principles. Again, if you don't mind, I wanted to read them. Yep. So that you can actually start to really appreciate the really internal mechanism of a cooperative. Okay. Membership is actually voluntary and open. So open in that sense means that it's not discriminatory. You cannot exclude women or religious groups or political, particular kind of political creed. Everybody is open. Of course, you can be restrictive in your membership in relation to what you want to do, in the sense that you may want to choose skills, knowledge, and competencies if you want. But fundamentally, the membership needs to be open, non-discriminatory.
Yeah.
It needs also to be voluntary. You cannot oblige people to become part of your cooperative. You can offer to become a member, but you cannot oblige them. So if, for instance, in a workers' cooperative where the majority of the workers could be member of the cooperative, if you have a new worker join in the enterprise, you can offer to this new member, the new worker, to become a member, but you cannot oblige them. Democratic member control. Remember the definition: jointly owned and democratically controlled. Really, this means that the principle is each member has 1 vote. 1 member, 1 vote. I express my democratic control by voting with 1 member, 1 vote. That is very different from companies, as I said before. Because in a company, especially in a private company limited by shares, the level of the number of shares you own gives you more decision power than other. If you are the majoritarian shareholder, of course, you have a bigger voice than another. Yep. In a cooperative, you can have a different shareholding. I can put 100 pounds in that cooperative. Matt can put 1,000 pounds, but the principle is 1 member, 1 vote, not 1 share, 1 vote. And that's very important. That's what makes a cooperative different from companies. Member economic participation. Because a cooperative needs to mutually benefit the members, it's important that it's very clear how do we participate economically into the cooperative. The cooperative is a business, after all. It's an enterprise. It's a business. So we need to really define how the member economic participation is actually measured. Think about the cooperative shop. I don't know if in your locality you have a coop corner shop type. Mm-hmm. And the more you shop, the more you accumulate your advantage, if you are a member.
Yeah.
And that's your economic participation. In the old days, the cooperative group was given back that in the form of dividends, the famous divvies. You had a membership with the divi number, and you, at the end of the year, you were getting back some money in relation to how much did you shop in there.
Yeah.
And some cooperatives can work on that. Again. But the cooperatives needs to also be autonomy and independent. From a business advisor point of view, because of that principle 4, autonomous and independent, cooperatives are not good as subsidiaries of other structure. Yeah. Because they needed to preserve the capacity to really decide democratically what to do. If you are a subsidiary, you lose that capacity because the mother, the mother structure will decide in some sort of way where your profit goes. So, for instance, in a classic structure where you have a company limited by guarantee and a company limited by share that does the social enterprise work, and then reinvest the profit into the company limited by guarantee or the charity. That's very good and well for companies. But in a cooperative structure, because of that principle, number 4, you cannot have a debt dependency. You cannot have a debt relationship in a way that constrain then your capacity to decide where you want to get the profit. Remember, the profit will be decided, the distribution of profit will be decided by the members at each AGM. The last 3 principles are very much about external guidelines. Cooperatives, in order to create good and informed decision-making, you need to educate your member. You cannot escape by it. You need to share the right information. You need to train your members. You need to give education to your members. So transparency and accountability is also part of that, while you impart the education part of your principle. The other principle 6, very much look at cooperation among cooperatives. That's something that we are not very good to achieve. In particular here in Ireland, not only in the north of Ireland, but in Ireland, and also in other constituencies like England, Scotland, and Wales. There are quite a lot of good, well-established cooperatives, for instance, in Northern Ireland. Think about the credit union. They are cooperatives. They are extremely well established. Are they connected to the agricultural credit union, agricultural cooperatives? Not very much. So there is not much cooperation among all these very well established cooperative sectors. Right. I call our sector, or the sector where we like to work, the emerging sector. We are only dealing with, groups, startup groups. We are not really dealing with a well-established cooperative sector like the agri-coops or the credit unions. First of all, because we are too small and we enjoy doing the more kind of innovative work that we can do by applying the cooperative structure. And secondly, because of this big cooperative in agriculture and credit union have their own internal way to develop their cooperative structures. So it's a kind of irrelevant for us to tell them what to do. Finally, cooperatives are not only looking inwards, they are always looking outwards. We are deeply connected in the community we serve, and not only our members. Third, elements of our identity. Very much important, very important. Cooperative and ethical values. When you're talking about cooperative values, this is what we mean. Self-help, self-responsibility, democracy, equality, equity, that means fairness, and solidarity. When we are talking about the ethical values, we are talking about we want to apply in anything we do within our governance, within our own rules, honesty, openness, social responsibility, and caring for others. I know that many hours can go into define what are the values of a social enterprise, for instance. And each social enterprise may decide particular values. Cooperatives have already those values set up. You just need to reflect on how you apply those values. So it's not that it's a bit of a shortcut, putting it this way, but it really goes to the heart of what cooperatives are. Why? Self-help. First of all, self-help very much is reflecting the history of the cooperative movement. Cooperative movement started in 1800, when there were quite a lot of needs in the communities, but the government was not there. You know, there was no NHS. There was not anything that would support any individuals to live a better life. So the first cooperatives were very much about, you know, the basics, candles, flowers, to make bread. And we were putting together their own capital to go and get the products that they needed, those communities. So self-help, it's really at the heart of what we do. And again, it's all about equality and equity. Two different concepts. Remember, we need to be fair, but equal. And that's a very important balance to obtain. So here is, if a cooperative, so our premises today was a cooperative is defined by three elements: the definition, the principles, the values. If that is the case, these are the first question you have to ask yourself, or any groups that comes to you and tells you, I want to become a cooperative. And I have a lot of people coming to me and ask the same question. And I ask them back, do you have a group? You cannot do a cooperative by yourself. You need to have a group of people that share something, a common aim. Do the individual involved have a common aim? What are the values? And then you can discuss about the values. Is the group willing to share responsibility and decisions equally? Sometimes you get groups that they come and say, listen, I'm just here to support, Matt doing this project, but I don't want to be part of the decision making. I let Matt decide. That's not a cooperative. Already, you see the imbalance of power.
Yeah.
Is the group prepared to work democratically? And that I mean very much, decision needs to be taken by voting or by really reflecting on what are the, the different kind of plus and cons on any decision, and then make an informed decision of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Will the enterprise be open to others? It's important. Principle 1 said that the membership needs to be open. Will the enterprise be independent? A lot of people comes and ask about cooperatives, but they have in mind a charity that they work for, and they want maybe a cooperative work alongside the charity. That's not really what cooperatives are. Cooperatives need to make their own decision autonomously, independently.
Yeah.
Is the group willing to accept 7 principles? So this is why if a group comes to me or an individual comes to me, I ask this question, then I provide the definition, the identity, all those elements, and I say, come back when you have a group of people. It's too consuming to work with one individual. You need to let the individual go out and try to recruit people to one particular idea, an aim. So,
Okay.
Matt, if you are thinking about community energy, you want to go down the cooperative idea, build your support, build some kind of connection with a group of people that share the same aims that you have. And also show them the definition of a cooperative. Say, what do you think? Would you be able to work in accordance to these values with this principle? Do you feel comfortable? when I put, you know, 1,000 pounds and you put only £1, that we have the same decision making.
Yeah, it's this kind of chicken and egg problem in one
Yeah.
sense.
Yes.
You know, if people don't have a vision for what the cooperative could be, how could they be interested in it?
And
So,
then we always advise to create public meetings. We
yes.
got out of the habit to help people, invite people to listen to what we have to say and start a dialogue. So
Yes.
you can have small meetings with people that you know and start to build that concept. You
Yeah.
explain it, and then you start to really listen. We want, at the end of the day, work with a steering group that has some kind of common aim.
Yeah.
And then it's a lot of leg work. How do you do it? Public meetings, meetings people that you know, sharing your values, sharing the definitions, sharing what you wanted to change.
Yeah. No, I can see how it would work, and I can see where, for example, councils that are doing this well are supporting that kind of activity specifically to
Yes.
try to nurture those kind of groups.
Yeah.
And of course, in Northern Ireland, we don't have that kind of support as they have.
You needed to do it yourself. You know, we can help you. You know, you wanted to do a public meeting on community energy. Let's start somewhere, you know.
Yes.
Get a town hall. The Carrickfergus Green Cross started like that.
Yes.
Out of conversation of citizens that they didn't know each other. They didn't. And they say, what can we do to make our town center better?
Yeah.
What can we do to make our energy cost less? What can we do to make access to health food and, you know, in healthy food more affordable? So those are very, very basic questions. And those conversations may take a bit of time and may take, you know, from a development point of view, I guess Jennifer would say, oh, it takes too long. And this is why we don't start to work with the cooperative unless we see that work has been done a bit.
Yeah, we were involved many years ago, and they don't exist anymore, but the setting up of Oraldale Agricultural Cooperative, Farmers Cooperative, and it is a very long process, Matt, for 2 or 3 people to come together to plant that seed and then get buy-in from lots of people to just make it viable. So it's a hard slog, but if you're passionate about it, all you need to do is find a few people who are equally passionate, like yourself.
Yeah, great.
Let's go on. Thank you, Jennifer. Let's go on. But what is the cooperative advantage? Also, you needed to define why we should get together. You know, what is the advantage of acting as a collective rather than acting as an individual? So we know that the cooperatives are owned by the members. So the advantage, one of the advantages is at least it's ownership, collective ownership. I'm not only the boss, we are all bosses. We are all owners. One member, one vote, that's another big advantage. The profit is shared equitably. It doesn't mean in the same way. It means in relation to what you have brought to the cooperative. In our cooperatives, I get paid the most, but not because my rates are higher than the others. We are all paid the same, but I do more hours. So it's equitable for me to be paid more because I bring more hours in the work of the cooperative.
Right, I see.
Equitably is not necessarily equal.
Yes, but I mean, presumably, you know, if one member has invested £1,000, one has invested £100, it would seem reasonable that there would be some recognition of financial input as well as time input.
Absolutely. So if you are invested, I can give you, the cooperative may decide to give you back 4% interest. And of course, 4% on £10 and 4% on £100 is a different amount of money.
Right, yeah, okay, so that would be on a percentage basis or something
Yes.
like that. Gotcha.
It would be on a percentage basis.
Yeah.
My cooperative, the Cooperative Alternatives, it's a consortium. So we have people that works in here, cooperatives, but also organization. And organization do not bring any kind of a time, but they bring something else like reputation or support or in kind.
Yep.
So they also profit are often recirculated within the members and the community. Many cooperatives also decide to have community funds that can be reinvested outside the cooperative for the benefit of the community in general. It may be really a charity or an initiative or a scheme that they wanted to support. In our case, for instance, any kind of profit that we want to allocate to our reserves or community funds can be used to help other cooperatives to lower the cost of registration. Because you will see later on that the cost of registration are very high. So we are using our profit to help the cooperatives to do that. Bear that in mind, because this is an advantage of being one of our members.
Right.
But
yeah.
what is the cooperative advantage really? If we are a group, we share the risk. If we need to start an enterprise and we need £1,000 and it's 5 of us, we can share that £1,000 among 5 of us. Each of us has diminished the risk.
Yeah.
So risk share, skill share. I wanted to talk to you about some cooperatives that have built their cooperative with people with different skills. In particular, a workers' cooperative had 3 different skills. A guy that could do website, a guy that could do movies, and a guy that could do photography. They became the creative cooperative. And they have increased their products offering, because they can do all these 3 things for their own clients.
Yeah.
We also can share the costs. So the cost, for a premises or the cost of starting up a website can be shared among the members. The cooperatives are also trusted. There's still this image sometimes, I'm not saying all the times, and I'm sure that we had big issues in the past, but the cooperatives kind of brand is a trusted brand. It's kind of very much, that it's for the benefit of the members, not really for the owners of the actual, corporate like Tesco. And cooperatives are definitely more resilient. Different studies have been done when in moment of difficulties, for instance, workers have voluntarily decided to get less money for a period, be paid less. So there is some kind of resilience built up in the fact that the members are owners of the enterprise, and the survival of the enterprise needs a sacrifice at times, and that has increased the resilience. There are some studies, but I let you decide, what if that is true or not. So what are the questions that we need to ask again when we are really looking at mutual benefit, the benefit of being part of a cooperative? Again, the group comes to you. Imagine that you are thinking about a cooperative, but what are the members' benefit if they join the co-op? Do they join because they want money or discounts or dividends at the end of it? Or do they join because they want to really be part of a bigger environmental impact? what the co-op gains from the members. So what do you ask to your member if you are the cooperative? Do you ask fees, financial contribution, time? You need to think about these things. Is there a real clear mutual benefit between the members and the co-op? If the co-op has to sustain themselves, that mutual benefit needs to be really explicit. I don't get involved with a group of people I have nothing in common. I will never join a cooperative that doesn't align with my own thinking. You know, I don't want to join a cooperative that, for instance, wants to reopen a collie in Wales, like it was. So you need really to be very, very explicit in the mutual benefit. And how do these benefits align with the goals and objectives of the cooperatives? You know, very well, we can say the cooperative wants to reopen a retail shop. But again, is these objectives really aligned with the values of the cooperative? Because we could, you know, become a Tesco in miniature. But we want instead to sell in our shop only local food produced and grown locally. That is different. That I can join. So what are the potential risks and drawbacks? So you need to also explain to your members what are the risks that they have. They can lose their investment, they can lose their time, they can lose also quite a lot of their connection because they build a community really. How can the co-op ensure that the relationship remain beneficial in the long term? All those questions will help you to define mutual benefit. And mutual benefit is at the heart after the identity of cooperation. Members. So here it is a very good equation. Members equal co-owners equal shareholders. So cooperatives are really owning at least one share of £1. And the principle is one member, one vote, at least. So remember again that you may have in a cooperative directors and members and directors. So the members are the owners, the directors are the manager, and the directors are elected from the members at each AGM. So practically in bigger cooperatives, there are smaller cooperatives that all the members are also directors. Like take the creative cooperative I was talking before, there were 3 people in the cooperative, 3 workers.
Right.
And these 3 workers were all, they didn't need to elect a director. They were directors. And
all directors, essentially.
But in community energy, for instance, cooperative, where you have quite a lot of members, you know, you could have up to 200, 300 members participating in the community energy scheme, then it becomes important that you elect a board that manage the day-to-day running of the cooperative. And the way you elect the board is coming, first of all, the directors needs to be the members, you know, you need to be a member to become a director. But then the directors will then act in accordance to the value objectives of the cooperative.
Okay.
So members. So one of the most difficult bits when you have a group and say, oh, who are the members? I'm not really sure. So I will suggest right from very early stages, a stakeholder analysis. You know, who has the control and who has the power?
Right.
This is very kind of the control of the success of the cooperative or have an interest in the success of the cooperative. And by, you know, a stakeholder analysis, divide the influence and the power. So some people have a lot of influence, but not very much power in deciding what to do. Other people may have a lot of power, but not influence in what you are doing. So the members are the people that have both. So the members could be producer, could be the consumer, the supplier, the buyer, or whatever is the products or the service that you are giving. Could be the workers, but some of them, or could be a combination of all of them. So if we have, for instance, cooperative in which the worker have all the power and all the influence, then the cooperative that we will form will be a worker cooperative.
Right.
When you have a cooperative where you have a lender and buyers have the influence in equal measure, lenders and buyers in equal measure, then you may have a credit union. A credit union, for instance, it's a cooperative of lenders and borrowers. You have a lenders and borrowers. You have it can be the same person at time, but in general, a credit union is made of borrowers and lenders.
Okay, I understand. Okay.
You have what Jennifer was referring to, probably in a farming contest, you may have all producer of milk becoming a member of an agri-coop, because they all produce milk and they get together because they want to control and be powerful in the way they sell the milk. They wanted to get the right rate for their milk and control the quality of the milk. So the producers at that point are the members of an agri-coop.
So could there be any commercial participants who are part of the cooperative?
You needed to be careful. Because a commercial, it's like to invite the bank. Suppose that a commercial participant is a bank that gives you some money, brings you some money. They have a lot of power because they will kind of determine when the terms of when you have to return their money. And they may have kind of create an imbalance of power with the rest of the members. So would I invite them to be a member? No, because they would be too disruptive in the membership. But would I have a contract? Would I ask the money? And I say yes, but I will not invite them to be a member of the cooperative. I will invite them to lend to the cooperative through a contractual agreement.
Okay, so you would keep any commercial participants in the business as suppliers, essentially under contract to the cooperative.
There's been quite a lot of this debate, particularly in community energy. For instance, the developer. Would you invite the developer to sit on the board, and elected from the member? And the developer may become a member because they invest the money as well.
Yes.
So they could be part of that. Some cooperatives decided to keep the developer relationship as a contractual relationship. You are here to give us a service, we pay for your service, and that's it. And separate the two. Some others, we have invited the developer on the board.
Yes, and I sort of sense that with both of the community energy organizations, that we've been talking about, and you appear to to operate with I can't remember the name of the company in the west of England that is supplying your essentially technical services.
Yeah.
And is that organization within the cooperative, or is that contracted to?
I don't know about that one west of England, but I can tell you that Drumlin has the developer within the cooperative.
Yes, okay.
Because they viewed that the developer being there could be an advantage for the cooperative, had the technical knowledge, had the the know-how. It could go and look at the wind turbine where nobody else did. So
Understand, yeah.
yes, exactly. Although there is they have a contractual agreement with a company, but this particular engineer, a developer, was offered a place on the cooperative.
Okay, yes, I understand that now. Yeah, that makes sense.
The other scheme, the solar scheme, they decided not to have any developer on the cooperative. Everybody was a volunteer. And actually, each of them had to learn the technicality, had to learn to become, running the solar scheme. So it really depends on what you want. But what is important for you to ask is, what is the advantage to have these figures on part of the cooperative?
Yeah.
And do we have a consensus as well that this is what everybody wants to, agree that the developer is coming?
Gotcha.
So, but this is in general for any type of cooperatives. Even in the greengrocer, when we had to ask ourselves, do we want to bring on board the actually grower? And they identify a couple of growers that they wanted to work with in Carrifergus. And they approached them, but their agreement was, you are our preferential growers, put in this way, but you are not on the board.
Yeah.
It's too difficult to manage the relationship.
Yeah.
So here it is. We define the type of the cooperative in relation of the type of members and the reason why they get together. So a worker cooperative is called a worker cooperative because the members are the workers. And the reason most likely a worker cooperative gets together is to provide employment to their own members. A consumer is a consumers like a cooperative shop, users of the service, and they provide goods and or service. A multi-stakeholder cooperative, you may have heard that, has different type of membership. So you can build a cooperative that has different type of members. It may include the workers, it may include the consumer, the investors, and the supplier. You may have heard of Lacada Brewery or Boundary Brewery, and they all have different stakes. They have the people that works in the cooperative and also the people that buys the beer.
Yeah.
Housing cooperative can be made of members that are tenants or owners. We have now in Northern Ireland a co-housing project that wants to create a housing cooperative where you have both tenants and owner, mixed tenancy. Mixed tenure, sorry. I knew that I was saying wrong. Community co-op is when the cooperative has the members, but also the community at large. It may be a geographical community like a Carrifergus, because they didn't want to stop the community to feel part of the cooperative. It's a very, very big kind of cooperative. This has the most kind of members, because it's not only the members, but also the community at large. Credit unions and consortiums, so all these have a very defined membership and very defined reasons why they are setting up particular cooperative. This again, it's to define the type of the cooperative. So, like we said, we have so many types: worker, multi-stakeholder, housing, consumers, community cooperative are also called the BENCOM. And these are some examples of the different type of cooperatives we have in Northern Ireland. A worker cooperative like the creative one, a multi-stakeholder like the brewery that I was talking about, a community cooperative like the shop, because they didn't want to stop the membership on few people. They wanted to include everybody in that geography. and a producer co-op that are the people that producing milk. These are some example of the last cooperatives we've done in the past, 10 years now. We went from student housing cooperative to energy cooperative. There is another one emerging, Matt, if you're interested, in Eden Dairy, village energy. They wanted to explore the use of geothermal energy from the lagoon. It's a very small community along the lagoon, and they wanted to get heat from there. Interesting, very interesting. To recap, a cooperative is a business, is defined by a set of principles. There are very nearly always several cooperative options, you know, workers, housing, so many, but you need to reflect about your membership. And you create the organization that works for the members and the business by reflecting on mutual benefit. Why we are getting together, what do we want to do, what is the need that we want to answer. Okay, I stop 2 seconds, and then we go into the legal structure that are possible in the legislation. But before that, can I ask you, are you okay with all that, or it's a bit too vague? I know people say, oh, this is vague. No, it's not vague. It's essential.
Yeah, no, very good.
No, good oversight. Yeah.
So here we are going. So we have formed our group. We have formed our group. We have our enterprising idea, creating, you know, energy assets, creating a shop, creating housing accommodation or student housing. Whatever it is, our idea, then we needed to set up the legal structure. The legislation we recommend here in Northern Ireland is called the Co-operative and Community Benefit Societies Act, Northern Ireland, 1969. Why we do recommend that legislation? First of all, I wanted to assure you that that legislation has been updated in 2016. So that legislation is very similar to the legislation that cooperative use in other UK part of the UK jurisdiction, like England and Wales and Scotland. Is of course different from the south of Ireland. We are talking about UK. Legislatively, we are belonging to the UK. So Cooperative Community Benefits Act in Northern Ireland is the legislation that allowed us to embed those principles and that identity, because explicitly we can do so in the Constitution. The registrar and regulator of cooperatives in Northern Ireland is the Financial Conduct Authority that is based in London. It used to be the Department for Economy. Maybe, Jennifer, you remember that. But they give that registration or function away in 2016 when we updated. So the Financial Conduct Authority is our regulator and our registrar. The cooperative legislation in Northern Ireland is still different, but than the other jurisdiction. So we need to amend anything to abide by our local legislation. Final question.
I'm just wondering why you meant I was around in 1969 to remember it.
Yes, that is because it's a normal evolution from the old Industrial and Provident Society Act, 1969.
I'm not that old.
Yes, but you want to laugh, Jennifer? In England and Wales and Scotland, they did all the amendments and the change in 2014. We completed, actually. We started in 2016, 2 years later, and we completed in 2018, 4 years later. But now, and we still have a couple of things that we could update, but we didn't. So this is why we're still different, and we needed to refer to our own legislation. One question that always been asked. I wanted to register a co-op using the Companies Act. So That's the legislation that we use when we set up companies, and also community interest company, because as you know, a community interest company is based on company legislation. Can we use as well the Companies Act to register a co-op? Yes, we can. Yes, we can. But it requires quite a lot of modification of the article of association. We needed to change them. And because we needed to change and accommodate our principle in that, they are not really coming natural. This is why we recommend a different legislation with different constitutions, and that it's easier for accommodating the principles of cooperation. So from our point of view, in the past 10 years, we have set up cooperatives and community benefit societies using that legislation at the top of the page, not Companies Act. But if you want, if you push us, we can, but it is not ideal. So, and there are some advantages. Of course, a Companies Act is more recognizable, you know, especially from a business advisor point of view. But the only thing I'm saying is that with, as you can see, we try to overcome the disadvantages of our legislation by offering you model rules, other model rules, and I can show you now. So we can set up using the cooperative community benefit society legislation, two types of legal structure. The first type is called the cooperative bona fide. So these are legal structures, not types of cooperative, legal structures. So it means that they have a constitution, and we can go to the FCA, and the FCA give us a number, and we are a set up cooperative. And this one is the cooperative bona fide. It's established for the benefit of its member. These are the main kind of characteristics of this legal structure. The control is based on the principle one member, one vote. In this legal structure, the profit can be distributed to the members as dividends and interest. The assets of the cooperative can be co-owned or in common ownership. There are two different ways to own the asset. And I give you an example. We can own assets where we can say, if everything goes pear-shaped, we divide the assets equally. That's co-owned. So if we failed as a cooperative, then we divide after we pay our debts, after we pay the residual assets, after we pay our debts, we divide equally what is left. But there is also a way to treat our assets differently in a cooperative. And we say that we have a common ownership when we don't divide the assets, when we move the assets to a cooperative with a similar kind of aims and objectives. So we can treat the assets in this legal structure in two ways, and we needed to decide in which way we wanted to hold the assets together. Of course, some cooperative, the advantage is to have a co-owned model, in the sense that suppose we are a group of cleaners. We didn't have a lot of capital, and when we start our cooperative, like the Belfast Cleaning Co-op, had to put a bit of money to buy our, cleaning products. At the end, if we wanted to close down the cooperative, or we wind up the cooperative, then we wanted to get back some of that initial investment. And therefore, we share what is left among ourselves. But suppose that I'm a drumlin, and I have, wind turbines. That can be an interesting question. If the wind turbines are left, who is benefit from these assets? The members, or maybe another energy organization that can actually own or be passed on some of the residual assets? It's an interesting question. Those are the questions that you will be asked to reflect on and to build in your own cooperative, and are essential questions. Question about profit, question about assets, and how you can raise your capital. So most of the cooperative bona fide will have the provision to share capital, to raise capital through shares. So do you remember we talked about one member, one vote? So you can hold one share and you are everybody holds one share, or you can hold more than one share. And that means that you can raise capital by giving share out to your members. So that's what is used even in companies. So you are selling share, but the difference is that the share that we are selling are called withdrawable shares, and they have a very, very specific characteristics, but they still allow you to raise capital. So the cooperative bona fide has these shares, and you can raise capital from that. Matt, I cannot hear
Sorry,
you.
sorry. I was just, I sort of understand. Okay, so we have these two different shareholders, if you like. Let's suggest maybe there's an organization where we've got 10 members of the cooperative, but then and so 10 voting members.
Yeah. But
we then have a share offer whereby we want to offer shares to 100
outside. Yes.
outsiders. Do those 100 outsiders have voting rights in the cooperative?
Because you are offering them shares, everybody that you remember the equation, member equal co-owners equal shareholders, they become your members. So they acquire voting rights.
But only one vote per.
Exactly.
One,
yeah. The principle is
maybe somebody owns £1 million and somebody owns £1.
Yeah.
They're equal. Yeah.
They are equal. So this is what they've done. You know how many members Carrie Fergus Greengrocer have? 374. 374. And everybody was asked to invest £25. That was equivalent of 25 shares.
Right.
At £1 each.
Okay.
And some people put £50, some people put £300. But all of them, those 373 or 74 members, is one member, one vote.
Yeah.
So
but obviously for for an energy cooperative, and I'm sorry to digress into that specifically.
No, go.
Obviously, to build a wind turbine is a big lump of borrowing.
Yeah.
That borrowing is going to be reliant upon some contribution within the business to begin with, or within the cooperative. So
when you are very, very true. When you are setting up a legal structure, you can still borrow up to £10 million, believe it or not. But you can build your equity by selling shares to your members.
yes, but you'll want to, any borrower will want there to be a reasonable ratio of equity against borrowing.
You needed to do your, you needed to do your kind of analysis of what would be that ratio.
Yes.
And then you needed to sell it to the people that you want to borrow money and say, sure. Now, what we have seen, Matt, in general, from the community energy perspective, the fact that you had a lot of members putting money, their own money into it, that was used as leverage more than as an obstacle. Yeah. Or going to a lender and say, listen, we have a shortfall. Can you help us to fill that shortfall? Okay. Now, any money that you borrow will have a precedence or any money that you have as equity. So you needed to pay your debts before you pay your shares. And you needed to make it very clear to your shareholder members that that is the case. And this is why you will have these, give me 2 seconds. Share offer documents.
Yes, and I have seen some of these online.
Very good. So
Yeah.
that's very important that you are very clear of what your members are investing, where you get the other money. You may want to even to get some grants. Maybe cooperative bona fide is not the best way to get grants, is the other one that is the best.
Right.
But let
And I
us,
guess there's this crucial sort of stage that I could see. You know, it's easy, well, once one has a wind turbine, finding somebody to lend against it's quite easy. But while you have a hole in the ground that's cost you £100,000, that's a more difficult stage to finance.
so Drumlin raised 3.9 million, but there were not only shares. There was a bit of borrowing in there. But we went to a very interesting lender in Northern Ireland. We have a community finance Ireland that is very specialized in helping social enterprises and cooperatives. So there are lenders more than banks that they are very well disposed to third sector enterprises.
Okay, good. I can't imagine my bank manager being very interested in financing a big hole in the ground.
You know, even Community Finance Ireland asked how much was the buy-in from the community.
Yes.
You know, because they really wanted to know if there was, So the share offer was a leverage. Another one was Ballymacash. For we had Ballymacash try to raise capital from their own community to remodernize their football pitch. Only after they got the money from their community, then the funders give them additional money to build a stand. Leverage.
Yes.
So again, this is one element of the cooperative bona fide of the legal structure. So cooperative bona fide have that possibility. Have those characteristics. Principal, one member, one vote. Profit distribution through dividends and interest. Assets can be co-owned and common ownership. But look at the community benefit society. This is a second type that we can set up a cooperative. And this community benefit society do have the capacity to reinvest in the community, to pay interest, but not dividends. So this is a structure that has curtailed the benefit to the members, but in a way that really can demonstrate the benefit to the community at large. So on one hand, we have a cooperative bona fide. On the other hand, we have a community benefit society. Those two structures are possible under that legislation called the Cooperative Community Benefit Society. Those two structures are very much all what we need to build all those type of cooperatives.
Right. So with this BENCOM structure, essentially the investors or the members are not using this as a personal investment.
That's it. That's exactly it. Because there are two aims here: to benefit the members, and the community. If you had a cooperative in which all the profit could be shared as dividends, then the community will not get anything.
Yes. So, I mean, I suppose in the community scheme, one of the potential benefits is to bring the community on board with, say, with let's say it's a wind turbine.
Yeah.
Nobody particularly wants a wind turbine on in their
Yes.
view, but if they feel involved and they have some benefit, and their community has some benefit, that offsets perhaps the visual disadvantages of having a wind turbine, or looking out your window.
And
So,
this,
which of those structures would be most helpful in working with a community around a wind turbine?
the community benefit society, because you can still pay interest. So there is a difference between interest and dividends.
Okay,
You can still pay interest to your members,
I see. Okay.
and just to retain the capital that they have invested. Probably is not a big interest, but you can still pay, up to whatever it is that you can afford. But say in the solar scheme, we were paying, we have a fixed interest every year of 4%. Now,
Okay.
you may not make a lot of impact now, but it was when we started the scheme in 2013, because in that period the interest in the bank was 1%. We were paying 3 times, 4 times more than what it was. But
Gotcha.
but Drumlin is a cooperative bona fide, so they decided, for instance, to give most of their profit to the members.
Right.
However, they also decided to have a community fund,
Yes.
so that they could return to the community.
So it's possible to return to the community both ways.
Yes. So
But
in
you
one
are
way,
also suggesting, in terms of grant structures, the BENCOM is
you know why? And it's not about apart the dividend and the interest, it's about the statutory asset lock. The BENCOM offer a bit more reassurance to any funders, because they have a statutory asset lock that is similar, not the same, but similar to being a charity. So it means that it cannot be dismantled, the asset.
I see. So it can't be it couldn't be cleaned out by a single investor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the risk with the cooperative in general. Our history, unfortunately, have taught us that cooperative can demutualize. If you remember, during the 80s, the building societies, they were all kind of selling their shares and demutualized.
So really, the BENCOM prevents demutualization.
It is a stronger kind of asset lock that allowed the members to feel more confident, and the funders as well to feel more confident. If you have to decide between the two, let us. So there is a different emphasis for beneficiaries and purposes. The BENCOM, the majority of the board cannot be workers. Well, okay, because sometimes we are asked, can we have more people that works in the organization to be part of the board? Not really in a BENCOM. The co-ops may pay dividend on transaction, but the BENCOMs cannot. The BENCOMs have a statutory asset lock. The co-ops may not, because you saw the two choices. But also, we have reached an agreement for some BENCOMs that if they have charitable objectives, can also become charities in Northern Ireland and can register as a charity commission. Now, I would not suggest, I not suggest this to become a charity at all, but it was useful for some BENCOM, like Ballymaccash, because Ballymaccash went on and sorry, this was my fault, and definitely what. Oh, these are kind of very, very dodgy phone calls I receive on my mobile from somewhere, I don't know where. And then the Ballymaccash became a charity because it had eventually developed a building project. And you know that if you are a charity, you have some advantages when you are building an asset that you wouldn't have if you were not a charity. So it was in that case we supported their becoming a charity. But in general, we have seen that Bencom can actually behave and act as a Bencom without the necessity to become a charity. Actually, free them from the charitable objectives. So they can actually trade in many sectors, like energy, that is not really a charitable objective.
Right.
The examples that we have for a Bencom is nice. The Northern Ireland Community Energy, you can actually look at that. 2-share offer, £200,000 raised to pay for 18 solar installation. Interesting. Yes. The cooperative bona fide, as an example, is Boundary. They did a 3-share offer, and they have more than 2,000 members. All that they started with building their equipment to create craft beer. So all their money was raised to buy the equipment for producing craft beer. Now they are managing the John Hewitt, that is a pub in Belfast, and they have also a tap room.
Yeah.
So you can see that each particular legal structure can be used for different type of cooperatives. You need to reflect a bit to choose between the two, but both are possible in Northern Ireland, and both are actually equally popular now in the last 10 years. So the question that you needed to ask is, what is your trade? Where is your trade? Is it charitable, not charitable? But also, where is the money? Where they come from? Where are the income sources? Do you need the grants funding? And how do you want to distribute your profit? Because if you need, grants and funding, then the asset lock in a Bencom, it really is more funder friendly.
Right. Yes.
It's quite a lot to take on, but in that respect, at least you know now that you have those two.
Yes.
Cooperative bona fide and community benefit society, both possible. Here it's a bit of a type of summary that I will distribute this presentation to you, so you can have that as a bit of a quick summary of who are the kind of responsible for the registration of this organization, and who can become a charity or not charity. What are the document? We call our documents rules. They are not articles of association. We call them rules. That's the proper name of a cooperative constitution. Right. So, model rules and registration. I go, again, I don't want Jennifer to go away without really look at what is the advantage of that kind of legislation. It's because we now have a model rules. Yes, we have a model rules that they are cheaper and quicker. In the past, you would have gone to a solicitor and asked the solicitor to draw up a constitution for your cooperative. It will cost you an enormous amount of money. Model rules now, we have two in particular sponsoring body that we are using in cooperative alternatives are Co-ops UK and Planket. Mostly Co-ops UK, because Co-ops UK have modified also their cooperative rules in accordance of the Northern Ireland legislation. So we don't have to change the model rules very much. They are already modified. The registration process is with the Financial Conduct Authority, but it's a timely and costly process. It will take 4 weeks to register a co-op. If you think that a company, you can do it in 24 hours. Right. And it costs about 30 pounds, 35 pounds. For us, it costs 250 pounds.
It's still not bad. It's
no, but it can be prohibitive for a group of workers, for instance, that they decide to have a small worker cooperative.
Mhm.
And then you will have the mutual register where your details will be made public with your rules, your names, and your annual returns. Because once you have registered, then you have obligation towards your financial conduct authority to present your accounts to them.
Right. Yeah.
So that's one of the things that you are not on Companies House. There will be only a reference of to your cooperative, but all your details are on the mutual public register. I
Gotcha.
wanted to show you something. Okay, 2 seconds. I wanted to show you. Can you see my screen? No, yet? No?
Not at the minute. No.
Okay. Okay, I wanted to show you. Can you see now?
Yeah.
So this is a Companies House. Okay,
Yes.
Companies House. Do you recognize the format?
Yes. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. And this is the name of Cooperative Alternatives, our company, our cooperative. And this
Yes.
is what the reference. Refer to the Financial Conduct Authority on the Mutual Public Register for further information. So in Companies House, that's the only information that will provide. But if you go to the Mutual Public Register of the FCA, we are in the FCA now. Here is our society, and here are all the information that you have.
I see. Yeah.
All my annual return and accounts, the registration documentation,
Gotcha.
all the way that the rules that we have done. Because you can change your rules with the time, etc., etc.
So essentially, from that point, you would need to have appointed an accountant to be essentially managing your accounts. I mean, unless you're going to do it yourself, which wouldn't be.
You probably, yeah, you for community energy, probably you need an accountant from day one.
Yeah,
but for smaller cooperatives, you know, the first annual returns can be done by themselves. If they trade, it's not very. They are not very high. In your annual return, you will have to present the profit and loss and a balance sheet. That's what you needed to present as minimum. Of course, the more complex is your business, the more difficult. And now you can still get exemption from an auditor. Because as for companies, micro companies have that exemptions. Well, societies under a turnover of £300,000 and an asset value of 5 million, they can avail of an exemption. Now, your community energy may have a turnover higher than that, but again, it's something that your accountant will.
But essentially, at the point where you became such an organization, you would need to have appointed an accountant. So
absolutely, and
an
auditor.
Pieces of paper up afterwards.
So the rules, how do they look the rules? They have your name, your address, the objective of your society, will define who is a member. It will define how to become a member or to cease membership. In your rules, you will have a shareholding, you know, with that principle written very clearly. It will define what are the shares that, and again, the shares we are talking about are called technically withdrawable share, and not ordinary share like in a company. Members meeting, they will give you all the regulation about that. They will tell you who are the directors and how to elect directors and how to hold the meetings of directors. And also it will include information about how you administer your society, your cooperative. So that's the skeleton of your rules that, again, you need to be aware before registration.
Mhm.
Two words about these withdrawable shares, why they are so different. Okay, here it is a couple of characteristics that you need to bear in mind. Principle, one member, one vote, not one share, one vote. Maximum shareholding, you cannot have more than £100,000 per individual. And that can be a limit, because for instance, agricultural cooperative, it was a limit. When they become big agri-co-ops with thousands of farmers, part of it, it may not be enough capital to build more kind of buildings or whatever. So, but from our point of view in community energy in particular, that has been a really important aspect, that £100,000 as maximum has allowed us to curtail, these big investors that were coming in because they wanted the money back.
Right.
He
Yeah.
wanted, you also,
Pension funds and stuff.
exactly. You don't want, like housing, in all the students' houses now built, the accommodation built by actually the university are all pension funds.
Mm.
It's ridiculous. And then we end up with accommodation that is not really built to suit the needs of students, but to suit the needs of the shareholders in that respect. So withdrawable shares cannot increase in value. So what does it mean here? You buy 25 shares at £1 each. That cannot, when you want your shares back, you will still get the £25 at £1 each. Now, if the business is doing well, because they can decrease the value. Why that's important? But because suppose that you are investing in a cooperative that is building a student accommodation. You are buying and you are using the capital to build an asset that maybe in 10 years' time, that asset could be valued 5 times more. A house today, it's £100,000. In 2-3 years' time, it could be 120, 130,000. But your shares stay the same. And that again is to discourage the speculative nature of shareholding.
Yes, okay. So the shares don't have any nominal value, or they have a nominal value, they don't have a...
They have the nominal value of £1, but it doesn't increase. It can
Yes.
decrease.
You can't sell it.
No.
For a profit.
Because there are only certain conditions in which you withdraw the share. You cannot sell it among yourself. You sell it back to the cooperative. It's only the cooperative that actually decide or allowed you to leave the shareholding.
Yeah.
Buys back. And that's again to discourage speculation. The interest that can be paid on shares is sufficient to attract and retain the capital. So again, can you get 25% interest on a shareholding in a cooperative? No. Yeah. The FCA will question you, but also the other members will question you and say why we enrich the pockets of the investors.
Gotcha.
And also that's one thing that you can do, and it's an advantage of it's the public offers. And the advantage we have in making public offer of shares to our members and eventually our members is because we are outside the remit of the Financial Service Market Act. We have particular exemption as cooperatives that allowed us to create these documents without the intervention of professionals like solicitors or permission from regulators. Okay. I will tell you a bit more about that. That doesn't mean that these are not regulated. We auto-regulated ourselves. Mm-hmm. So you can see that these are all part of your rules, the model rules and the registration process. Yeah. And these, okay. Model rules and registration model. The
Sorry,
final-
just in case, you're still on the mutual public register on ours if you're working through your PowerPoints there.
Oh, can you see this now?
The only thing I can see is your company house and mutual public register cooperatives as opposed to your PowerPoint. That's it. See it now.
See? Okay. Did you see this one, Jennifer? Model rules and registration process. So this was very much the public register. This is the elements of the rules that you needed to consider. And this is a bit of information about what shares are the shareholding in a cooperative. And then now, one of the financial advantage of having a cooperative is exactly those share offer, because you raise the capital among your membership or the public that becomes your members, put in that way.
Yeah.
There have been so many of these community share offer across the UK. You probably are aware of those more if you have looked at England and Scotland and Wales than in Northern Ireland. So in the past 10 years, we have really had an explosion of that. Community energy has been one, but also housing, also farming in the sense of buying land for community-supported agriculture. So here is, there are been 150 million has been raised in England and Scotland and Wales. So this is UK-wide. Yeah. This is very much, you know, really to launch a business from the startup, because if they went to the bank, nobody was giving them money. They didn't have a track record. They were a group of volunteers or a community leaders that they wanted to do something for their community. So they don't fit into what the bank will be lending to. So they used that self-help ethos and they share and they raise the capital for what? Community pubs, quite big in England. Shops, renewables, community-led housing, healthcare. In Northern Ireland, we've done 14 share offer so far, 14 in the last 10 years. We have raised around £1 million out of 3,000 members. And where did we do it? We used it for community-owned breweries like Lacada and Boundary, community renewables like Drumlin and Nice, community building like the Ragland. Unfortunately, that didn't go very well. Farms and land for Down to Earth and Jubilee Farm. There are two kind of example of using the money to buy land to do something with that land. Community sports facility like Ballymacash, and community shop recently, very recently, like Carrifergus, but also in the west, the northwest, ethical way in Eglinton. That was a community buyout. That was a very interesting one. The private owners didn't want to continue their shop. It was one of those scoop shop, you know, one of those very organic alternative shops. The community didn't want that shop to go away. They put together initial money and bought out the owners. That's another way to look at the cooperatives, getting together for preserving a service or something that the community feels that they need. So there are different types of share offer. There are pioneer, very risky at the beginning. Time-bound offer, you know, for a period of time. Carrifergus was open for, I think, only a month or 6 weeks. And so it's time-bound. There are also, for mature business, open offers when you want to keep maintaining your membership. So you allowed more people to come in by buying shares. And there are also recovery share offer. We haven't done it yet in Northern Ireland, but they were very much COVID related, you know, raise capital in moment of crisis. Help us. The Dublin Food Co-op in the south have done a kind of raising the capital in time of crisis. They were going to close and they did it. So you remember, we are exempt from regulation, but we are actually trying to have a good practice and guidelines, and we have developed the community share standard mark. If you are going down the cooperative route, if you are going down the community share open offer route or offer to your community, we encourage you to abide by the standard mark and use a licensed practitioner. Now, we are a licensed practitioner. There are plenty across UK. We are the only one in Northern Ireland, but this is, you can work with anybody in the UK. But that will ensure that whatever you are telling the public is in accordance of best practice. Yeah. And there is accountability and honesty. So, summarizing, we finished. You have more support available, but let me finish everything here. Just to summarize, I wanted to stop sharing the screen. No, I don't want to stop sharing. I hope this was an overview that allowed you to appreciate how do we define the cooperative, why and what type of cooperatives we have, and why members need to be at the center of their thinking when you started to develop your cooperative, or when you have groups who wanted to develop cooperatives. Yeah. And then the legislation. Why it's important that you choose one legislation rather than others, or you have model rules rather than others. Only under the Cooperative Community Benefit Society Act, you can also do share offer. You cannot do that if you are registered through Companies House and Companies Act. So there are advantages, and one of the advantages is really about a financial advantage to gather that startup capital that was so useful and so important for some enterprises, like a community shop, community energy, community pubs. So that's very much all what I wanted to say today. We have a connected kind of session in February about business plans, because as you can imagine, our business plan needs to focus very much about membership, and we needed to define that in our business plan, how to maintain, how to retain, how to change also the membership, because it's only about that relationship that makes cooperatives work. And also, we wanted to bring you some examples in the next session of cooperatives that haven't worked. Why? Why yes. They fail.
I was just going to ask a question, because you mentioned Raglan. Yeah. Unfortunately, that didn't. And as obviously it's the business advisor session. So one of the first things we always tell people about things that don't work out for us is partnerships. 27 years of business advisory. There has been no partnerships have survived in that 27 years unless they're a husband and wife that have come through your doors. Why did Raglan not work out?
Okay. I set the contest. Raglan wanted to use the first floor of a building that was occupied by the credit union.
Okay.
The credit union had enough money to develop the first floor, the ground floor, but the Raglan said, well, give us the second floor. And we developed that as a community type of facilities with a kitchen, because we know a lot of people in the area grows their own food, and they wanted to prepare chutneys and everything. It looked like great, was a way to use something that was not used and bring the fresh capital as well to the credit union, that the credit union didn't have enough money to do the restoration. Why did it fail? Because, okay, I don't want to point the finger to the credit union, because the credit union got fed up in waiting for the support that the Raglan was promised by government. So practically, what happened was that the Raglan needed some funding from the council and some funding from the Department for Communities to develop the Raglan Community Benefit Society. And that caused delays. Those delays caused bad relationship with the credit union. The credit union withdrew the offer of the building.
Okay.
The Raglan collapsed. What
Okay.
could I have done?
It's a shame it collapsed, because if the concept was good, you would think they would go and find another building.
Another, exactly.
So I think there's probably less about the credit union, because my next question is, doesn't matter what you say, we've worked with community groups, and it doesn't matter about equal share, equal vote. There are driving forces behind, regardless of whether it's cooperative, a community association, a social enterprise, there has to be driving forces. Is that your experience? There has to be a core that drives this, a bit like Lee and Carrickfergus greengrocers. She's a driving force. She'll keep it together. Her and a couple of others, if they leave, it will probably start to fall apart.
I completely in agreement. The Raglan could have gone, first of all, to address that, could have gone somewhere else, find another kind of building. And the idea was good, but they didn't, because the committee started to dissolve. So for me, it's not about one individual, it's how the committee or the collective is working. If actually, if I may say so, if you have only one driving force, Jennifer, you have more chances to failure, because if that driving force goes away, then everybody got lost. We almost had that in Jubilee Farm. Johnny was the very big driving force. Johnny went away. He found another job. We lost almost the enterprise. So what is important for a cooperative? To have a set of people, a good committee, a good representation of your membership. That is, so the entrepreneurship for us has to be shared and collective rather than on the individual. But we always find that? No, no, it's difficult, because the personality needs to come out, but you need to create the right structure where people can express themselves and can become drivers themselves. You need to educate people to say, you are in charge, and we are not maybe used to be in charge.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree that the driving force, but in a cooperative, for a cooperative to succeed, it needs to be to more than one person.
That's what I mean. There has to be more than one or two people running it. Yeah.
And it has to be good. Another big internal conflict. If 2 or 3 people start to fight, you may risk the split of the membership in factions. So that's very, very negative for the cooperative, because you create a conflict. Conflict in itself is not negative. If you know how to overcome it, if you have open discussion. But if you have factions that start to be disruptive against each other, so lack of trust, factions, unresolved conflict are all enemies of cooperation. So how do we mitigate that? Is from day one, we are really big in governance, and we say, you have a problem. Here is this is the meeting. This is the way we wanted to solve it. This is the way we wanted to talk it. We really need to be accountable. Those value, democracy, openness, accountability, they needed to be really felt. But Jennifer, these are human organizations, and humans are imperfect. despite the
all
fact,
organizations have the same risks.
yes, despite the fact that we try to create a balanced organization that doesn't have a profit at their own center. You know, we have the power of the individual is at the center, the member is at the center. But yes, it can fail, for sure. Another example that I have was we tried our hardest to make that survive, but that particular committee had 2 people that couldn't agree. So none of them wanted to resign. That's another thing. Everybody wanted to stay, and we tried to bring people in, bring more people with different skills, mixed a bit more that committee, help them focus more on the organization rather than their conflict. Nothing worked. And at one point you have to say, well, it's not working. You know, there is nothing like continue something that continues failing. You needed to say stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Finger crossed, you know, some of the good examples are still up and running after 10 years, but up and downs, you know, committee change. In some of the breweries, we had a change of committee members that brought a more business-like, but they forgot about the values and conflict. So we had to do some work there to realign everything.
Yeah.
It's hard work, but I guess that it's hard for any business that wants to put their culture at the heart of what they do. And you need to safeguard that. But what we have seen trend-wise, more and more generation are interested in purpose-driven business. I don't know, Jennifer, you have a more exposure to business than we have, but we see more and more people are actually being very driven by good food, you know, different way of working, work and life balance, health, mental.
The ESDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals are embedded now in a lot, and particularly if I would say that graduate-based entrepreneur who, and the younger generation, sustainability, carbon footprint, is all plays a part. Although to be honest, sometimes they say one thing and they do another from the point of view of they talk about sustainability and climate, but they're a throwaway society, changing their fashions, changing their phones, etc. So I think they talk the talk, but I'm not sure if they walk the walk per se. And I think sometimes they're using the SDGs to try and tick funding boxes and try and access funding, as opposed to really believe in it and really embedding it.
Yeah. And yeah, again, that in a cooperative, you needed to answer to those values quite a lot. So in AGM, for instance, and now we encourage to, yes, measure your profitability and declare your profitability through your accounts, but also we encourage you to look at your principles and tell your members what you've done to abide by your principle. So when we say that your membership is voluntary and open, so we ask the society to report at the AGM, what have you done to make your society open and voluntary? You know, your membership open and voluntary. So we go down each single principle, and we have used those principles to return our report to the members. It's really, yeah, we try to encourage that, because we know what you are saying, that there is a lot of taking the language, but not the action. We want the language and the action. And because the members are kind of, if they are engaged, if they are interested, they can be very sharp in identify the society that does things for the right reason.
Very good.
Yeah.
Great. No, it's a fantastic oversight. Thank you very much.
Okay. I will. Yeah.
Yeah, I must say I only picked it up because it was floating through Twitter. So, you know, for number wise, it's a pity others weren't there, but maybe you just need to put it out LinkedIn and other platforms. It could have been on it. I just didn't see it because people don't use Twitter anymore.
Thank you, Jennifer. No, you're right. I don't know. I had it used to the 7 people here, but
yeah. Well,
yeah.
you know yourself, there's always something comes up in the
Completely.
world of running a business that prevents people from coming to things. Yeah.
Yes, very, very useful. Thank you, Tiziana.
Very good, and we can carry on a conversation anytime. You know, pick up the phone, and we are here. But I get in touch maybe about the community energy, and we'll let you.
Yes,
Maybe
I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm very interested in exploring this. You know, if there is an opportunity to make a community energy company progress climate change stuff linked to the community with the local, you know, with that local element, I'm very interested in doing that. If it works, you know, obviously, you know, if conditions are wrong, then that's not going to work. But so I'm interested in progressing it to the point where it's possible to see, is there a way when the government incentives, you know, make it possible to kind of, I suppose, become community energy 2.0 or something in Northern Ireland terms, because, you know, there's nothing's happened for the last 10 years or more.
Yeah.
And is it the time when it can restart? And could I create something that could be part of that? At the same time, I would be questioning why Drumlin wouldn't be a better vehicle, you know, for doing it. If Drumlin's done it, has the track record, has the skills, has the connections, maybe I shouldn't be trying to do it, and Drumlin should be trying to do it instead of me. So why would I be better than Drumlin at doing that?
Well, that's certainly a question that you can even ask Drumlin themselves. But at the end of the day, there are the cooperative growth. If you look at the most successful region where cooperatives have developed the most in relation to the cooperatives, really, are when the region have created small cooperatives around the region to collaborate together. So Emilia-Romagna region in Italy, where I come from, they have an enormous amount of small cooperatives and networked as so change has happened and growth has happened in different way, different than the agri-co-ops in Ireland, where they keep merging, and becomes bigger, but more distant from the membership.
Yes.
So that's the kind of a growth model that we would like to see more. A lot of small energy cooperative working together, yes, of course, because in number there is force, yeah, of course. But
I suppose scale, you know, yet scale is important, you know, and it's easy to say, well, you know, we can get 3 people together here and we can put a 6-foot wind turbine on, you know, on a tree, but it doesn't help.
Yeah,
we need scale. And so, you know, how do you find the way to scale that is economically viable and carbon viable?
And that's where we needed to sit down and really look at the numbers, the possibility, opportunities. But yeah, it's possible, Matt. I encourage you, and I can make you in contact with this already existing organization, and maybe even talking to them makes you really encouraged to try.
And that would be very helpful.
We started from there.
You know, I come, you know, I obviously have a business background and have done projects for companies, but it's very different to be doing projects, you know, in a community setting.
So yeah.
Sector.
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you very much. I don't want to keep you more.
Thank you.
See you
guys.
Thank you to meet you, Jennifer. Thank you, Tiziana.
Bye bye.